Charles Tannock, what would be your comment on passionate plea of President Juncker to send more experts to help to gut European border by FRONTEX?
My plea is that Mr. Juncker is living in a Brussels bubble, detached from the reality on the ground. Europe faces a huge crisis. His approach and the approach by Chancellor Merkel are extremely unhelpful and cannot work. The open door signal that somehow we have to live up to our values by allowing anybody to come to our continent from anywhere in the world, and that somehow that the member states have the capacity to deal with this open door policy, that somehow we can sort out and register those who are genuine refugees from those who are economic migrants. This is all a dream, in my view, because we've seen not only is there increasing resistance by some member states who refuse to take the quotas allocated to them, like Slovakia, other countries in Eastern Europe like Hungary. There is now the rolling back of the Schengen Agreement by the building of fences and the suspension of the borders. Really, I feel that Juncker is putting his finger in the dike, to use the old proverb, somehow thinking that Europe can carry on business as usual in the face of a huge crisis of literally hundreds of thousands of people arriving from North Africa, from Turkey across to Greece, which really the only way to deal with this is to defend our external border very, very vigorously by cooperation from the member states, to launch a naval offensive against the people traffickers in Libya, and to tell the Turks that they must honor the readmission agreement with Greece and prevent people who are safe and housed in their camps from leaving Turkey and illegally crossing into Greece in unsafe vessels very often. And the fact that Turkey has used this as a form of leverage to put pressure on the EU, and Merkel had to go to Ankara and be told by Erdogan that in order for Turkey to cooperate in stemming the refugee exodus, that we must make concessions to Turkey, both financial as well as visa liberalization, as well as opening chapters in the EU accession negotiations. These are all strange situations to be in, and I don't think that Juncker really appreciates how the people of Europe and the voters are going to reject this kind of more Europe solution. I heard the Commissioner say again, we need more Europe. No, we don't need more Europe. We just need a tough Europe which is prepared to defend its borders and maintain social cohesion in our societies. And an open door policy to the entire developing world, which is more or less what he has suggested, is clearly impossible.
Might this illusionary policy lead to a collapse of the whole Schengen system, because many citizens are really concerned about their safety and security?
Oh, I think so, almost undoubtedly, because I didn't mention this is also the security worry that, you know, in these huge exoduses, there will also be infiltration by international terrorists and criminals who will be both making a profit from the people trafficking, but also putting their own people in to get into our countries and carry out potential terrorist attacks. No, I fear for the Schengen system. I'm more fearful for the whole of the European Union project, and I'm more fearful for my country, the United Kingdom, voting to leave the European Union. Every time the migration crisis gets worse, more people in Britain blame it, and the UKIP party, which wants independence from being in the European Union, they blame the European Union. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. But this blame to the European Union is going to be reflected in more Euroscepticism, countries like my own possibly voting to leave, the rise of the far right in France, and Madame Le Pen doing extremely well in the presidential elections. Sometimes, you know, it's time for the Commission and Juncker and others to back off and reconnect with the people who elected the political class in Europe and appreciate that more migrants is not what the people of Europe want. What they want to do is preserve their borders and their way of life.